Brilliant. So, welcome to another episode of the RGM podcast. It's Carl Maloney in my little yellow booth here for another exciting episode of the RGM podcast experience. And today's guest, ladies and gentlemen, is Leon the pig farmer, or Jack. Hi, mate. How you doing? You all right?
I'm doing all right, pal. You?
What would you prefer, Jack, today?
Yeah, let's go with Jack, shall we? I'm this side of a stage microphone, so we might as well stick with Jack.
Okay. So, Jack, you've got your name for Leon the pig farmer. You're an author. You're a husband now. You've got the dirt band. You've got a lot going on, mate.
I'm a busy lad now, yeah. It's crackers. It's just nuts. To say it all started just under 3 years ago. It's gone a bit mental, but I'm loving it. Totally changed your life, and it's good. Yeah,
well, I've seen you out at many gigs. We've shared a pint, out in Manchester, out and about. We've had you on in Sheffield performing and that kind of stuff, but I've never really proper sat down one-to-one and had a chat with you. So we thought we'd bang a screen between us, record it, and put it on as a podcast as our first proper adult chat, mate. How's that for you?
Yeah, not bad for a first date, is it?
I know, mate. Yeah. I've got my water and everything in case it gets weird later.
I know, yeah.
It's weird because I see your name and particularly recently, Leon the pig farmer's all over the place in the dirt, and you're working so hard in getting these projects out there into the world. But I just want to delve back into your history as a person, really, and before you even got to the Leon the pig farmer stage, you just talk me through young Jack starting off in life. What were you doing back in the day? When did you start feeling creative? Is probably a good question.
I probably had a passion for creativity, but it was never unleashed at school.
Yeah.
In my school, it was very cliquey around the arts, and you either did sport or you did music, and you got involved with drama and stuff. Because I was an all right, above average footballer, to put it modestly, I fell into the sports and I went on and did all right with football. So far that I wanted to do it as a career, but it fell on its backside at 16 when, after a few trials, it became apparent that I wasn't good enough to do it for a living, but I was good enough to do it part-time or whatever. So I enjoyed art at school, and I've always enjoyed lyrics and music. I got into buying vinyl at the age of about 8 or 9 through friends of my mum and stuff like that. So music has been around me, a constant from growing up. And I'd always had an interest not only in the sound, but lyrics. I enjoyed English writing at school. And that's as far as the creativity went, really. And until then I left home and I joined the army when I realised there wasn't any football that's going to be paying the bills and the rent or the mortgage or whatever you want to call it.
I can remember teachers at school being really supportive of people that had a passion for sports, particularly. I didn't see the same passionate teachers around the arts.
No,
trying to get people in it. Is that how you found it? Would you?
Yeah, I came from a semi-rural market town comprehensive, and I grew up on a council estate in a single parent family. One of the first ones, probably in the 70s, to be fair. My mum was quite brave and jumped before she set a trend, I think. But it wasn't seen as going into that creativity wasn't an angle you were pigeonholed into other stuff.
Yeah.
And because I was fairly academic, but not over the top academic, I was bright, but I didn't put any work in. It was one of those things that sport just fell naturally. And because I could run fast, and I was a county runner, county footballer, and those were my two probably main sports. In the winter were cross country and football. In the summer I did athletics, middle distance. And because I had a natural aptitude of being lazy as a teenager, I kind of pursued that and didn't really put any graft or any effort in. And once I'd realised that, I did get accepted to college to go and do sports science and stuff up in Skipton with a BTEC, but I decided on joining the army. It was a crazy decision, knee-jerk, nothing that... I'd had family, that great uncles and stuff that had been in the army, but more people earlier, but no one in the direct, immediate family had done it. And I did it because I didn't know what else to do. A lot of my
there were no avenues for art, the creative side of it at all back then.
That was in the background. I got an O-level in art, but it was never something that I'd want to pursue any further. And because sport fell on its backside, I just joined the army, and someone said you can go and do that part time and get and keep fit and that. And so I joined the army. There was nothing around the market town that I wanted to do. It was like 15 mile outside of York, about 20 odd from Leeds or whatever. And it was just, we were kind of like distant and a little bit more isolated. It's different now. When I go back, it's a lot more connected to the cities. And I think that's because it's not the 80s anymore. We're a lot more mobile socially and on the internet, aren't we? So we know a lot more. But I joined the army. I think it was kind of a rebellious thing that I didn't want to do anything around where I was, and I wanted to get away. And that was what I did, really. I think my parents were pissed off at the time about it. But after I'd carved a decent, successful career in it with what I did specialize in, it was all forgotten that it was a bad thing. Because I've got to remember, in the 80s, there was a lot of bullying in the army going on, and people were scared, and there was a lot of bad media going around, especially after the Falklands. And it was only a few years after that, and we're still in a Cold War. And there was a bit of a stigmatized that you only went and did it if you had nothing else to do. But I kind of enjoyed it. I got some great mates. I still hang around with a few of the lads and a couple of girls, and I've just touched base with a lass at the moment who I hadn't seen for 20 years. And it was like yesterday that we just met up, and it was good fun. That was me.
Did it, the army, when you got into the army, how do you find the initiations and the
I had to really shut my mouth through discipline, because I've never been like what to be told what to do. Right. So the discipline side was kind of like getting my head around that and moving away from home at 17 and having to iron. Because even when you leave home, I can guess as a student, you never iron, but having to iron and do shit like that and clean and tidy and do brass and all that, it was just nuts. Are we still checked in? Because my screen's gone off.
Yeah, mate. I can see you fine there.
Good. Sorry. And I found it not difficult. I eased into it quite well, because we were living in 20 lads in a room in bunk beds, and the shouting and that, I kind of just let it go in one ear and out the other.
Yeah.
And the competitive side of me took over and just wanted me to do well. Yeah. And I got through training without getting back squadded, which was getting put back 4 weeks in case you weren't that good or you needed further development. So I got through first run at it. And out of 40, there was only 5 of us, I think, that did that. And as a 17-year-old, it was quite pleasing. And then I enjoyed the time in the army. I enjoyed what I did. I got to play a lot of sport. I didn't get to travel and see the world too much. I spent 5 out of my 10 years in Northern Ireland. So a lot of it was spent there, which is, we could talk about it later, but that's where a lot of my PTSD, post-traumatic stress, came about from there and from living in Africa. But I enjoyed it, but I'd realised I'd reached my promotional ceiling. I wasn't into getting promoted. I wasn't into stabbing people in the back. I wasn't into conforming. And I think I'd reached a point where I had to leave, because I didn't want to get dressed up to go for a pie and chips for tea, which is what you had to do if you were going to get promoted, and you had to toe the line. And I want a yes man. So I kind of like left.
Are you okay to talk and mention, you mentioned Africa and Northern Ireland there. Are you okay? Are you comfortable talking about that? Just out of interest.
I'm all right. I talk about it openly now, pal. I've never talked about it for 20 years properly, apart from in a bit of probably dark humour and in a bit of reminiscing with a couple of lads. But a lot of it is referenced in my book, and I do talk about it quite openly now.
Yeah.
If I do talk, I talk quite free flowing. So I'll give a trigger warning, and anyone that's listening, I do talk about death, and I talk about a lot of graphic stuff that I've experienced.
So we will cover the book, and I've got my copy here, mate. When I saw you down at Spinning Top in Stockport, so you're talking yourself out of trouble. You mentioned the PTSD there. I always get initials wrong for stuff. So this book, by your own definition, really, you've used these words to try and help you through dealing with the stress and everything. And from your experiences of being in the army, is that how it is?
Yeah, that's exactly the title does exactly what it says on the tin. Yeah. It's talking, becoming a spoken word artist or writer, creative writer, and sharing it with people at open mic nights, or when I've supported bands or other spoken worders. It is literally me talking myself out of a troublesome mind and writing my way out of it. It all started on the 8th of March, 2019. So we're coming up to 3 years now. When I woke up in a police cell, I'd been hammered the night before, and I woke up in drunk, and I hadn't remembered I'd lost half an hour of my life the night before. And I can go in as much and talk about that as you want, but it was the catalyst of coming out and realizing I needed help. And I went down, and leading up to there, especially over 5 years at least, there was triggers that I should have done stuff with, physiological stuff with teeth grinding, seized shoulders, other tendons and ligaments that ached, headaches, explosive incidents of temper losing and stressed and not fitting in and disassociation from family and just going on binge drinking sessions for a few days on end. And I had loads of warnings and I just didn't listen to them. And it were eventually that once this incident happened, I needed to shake myself down and really get a grip. So I went into a period of abstinence. I got onto medication, saw my doctor, got booked in with Healthy Minds for therapy, cognitive behavior therapy. And I saw some psychoanalysis through a couple of psychotherapists. And then I started my healing process. But one of the biggest things, and I always say this, is the creativity, which I'd never explored through writing, was one of the biggest things that helped me get over my anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, panic attacks in the middle of the night sweats, and all my physical ailments that I had vanished within 3-4 months. Wow. Whether that be the therapy hadn't even started then. So whether it be the medication, whether it be the getting out walking, leaving a toxic environment on many levels, or it was the words. But I've stuck with the words and I've never gone back. I've never had a dissociation syndrome that I had. I've never gone and got obliterately drunk like I used to all the time. So it's kind of a safety mechanism for cathartic release of thoughts, and it's working.
Sure. So what kind of, if you don't mind me asking, and let me know if you're not comfortable, what kind of experiences did you witness in Africa and Northern Ireland?
My first one was as about an 18-year-old. I was on the waterside in London, Derry, call it what you will, I ain't precious. And we chased a couple of lads in a transit van with 6 loaded mortars, which ended up being stopped, and we caught 2 of the lads, and the explosive ordnance guy who had to dismantle them blew himself up and lost sight and lost limbs out of that. So that was my first one. And then going back to Ireland, after a bit of time in Africa, I experienced my mate getting his pelvis blown out by a sniper, and we were mortared our base and had to live in a farm for a few days. So to escape the shells that had come down till they were cleared. So that was in South Armagh, and I'm happy to talk about them. And while I was in Africa, I was in Angola, which was going through its own civil war in 92. And in 96 or 95, I went out towards the end of 95 for the first half of 96. I went to Rwanda, which had just gone through an horrendous genocide, which was all of the media. And I went out to do work out there for the army, working for the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. And there was a lot of death, a lot of skeletal sort of just scattered everywhere, bones, skulls in churches, and it had been well documented around the global news. And there was a lot of aftermath still knocking about while I was there. So I'd seen quite a lot of trauma, and I'd been wrongly arrested in Angola for being a mercenary. I was a white fella walking on the beach, had a camera in my hand, and they thought I was a mercenary doing some reconnaissance when I wasn't. And I got stripped to my boxer shorts and interrogated, and it was just not long after the Terry Waite thing. And I thought, hey, I ain't going to see the light of day for a long time now. So that was scary. And getting malaria was horrible. So I'd gone through a few bumpy times in Africa and Ireland, and I'd basically battered it all off with a few pints with mates and a bit of a sense of humour, and gone, yeah, that's what happens. It's occupational hazard, isn't it? When really it is an occupational hazard, and you join the army, you don't expect it to be a ride. But I hadn't dealt with any of it, and I hadn't dealt with it properly, and I just bottled it all up, and it took about 20 odd years before it just decided all at once to just explode out in the head. And it came out in true fashion that I woke up pissed and in a bad state, and eventually in a police cell. So I didn't hurt anyone.
Yeah.
But, if anyone's ever wondering, I didn't do anything shady. I didn't do anything that was that hurt anyone. So there is no sort of like what's the word, self-care, self-harm, or no one needs to know. I'm not a violent man. I've not hurt anyone in any way. So there's none of that. And I've only just started really 3 years on, totally being honest about what had happened. But I lost half an hour of my life. I was on a tram. 3 lads. I used to have a typical Gallagher Lego head haircut, and they were shouting typically.
I'm one of them.
Yeah, players Wonderwall. There was all this, and I just back chatted, and they followed me off a tram. I got off early for my safety because it was getting a bit tetchy, somewhere near Rawdenshaw, near the Snipe, and I came home. And what I did was I went into covert mode. I got a line onto my mates who said I went over to McDonald's. And then the rest of it was mad. I went out of my way, picked up my car, drunk, and wrapped it around a post. Yeah. And I just sat there waiting for the cops going, what the hell has just happened? I just came out of it half an hour later. So half an hour, I still don't know to this day what has gone on. And I wanted answers. And eventually, after speaking to psychologists and through therapy, both of them independently, not knowing each other, had said you suffer with a lot of dissociation syndrome, which to me, I understood that as when the anxiety and the PTSD kicks in, I go into some sort of sleepwalking different zone, the subconscious takes over. Okay. But yeah, that's hopefully a thing of the past now that I've dealt with it and I deal with it. And a lot of the stuff in the book, talking myself out of trouble, is about that. I was in trouble and I talked my way out of it by becoming a creative writer and then taking it to the stage and creating Leon the Pig Farmer.
Yeah. Well, thanks for opening up about that and being so honest. I think, if it is the real world, isn't it? War and all those things. And, it's thanks for opening up and being honest about that. Because, if anybody else is watching this who's been in those pressurized environments, have you got any advice for people that might not be understanding what's going on and be able to give them some tips on, I don't know, touch points where, you might be able to help them identify that there's something else going on that they might need extra help for?
I think, it's about seeing the signs and listening to your body. I never did. I ignored it all and looking and assessing where you're at in life and what you're doing. And there's never too late to change. And it's never too weak. It's a cliche. It's a saying. It's never too weak to speak. We as men of a certain age think it's so masculine that if we bottle up and with a stern, stoic northern lads who don't let our feelings out. And I became a victim of that by not talking. I think we're a lot better now. The younger generation are a lot better. And I think we are as well. I joined a few self-care groups about talking and realizing when you've got anxiety, and realizing a lot more of us do, and especially in this current world where the pressures are there, a lot more of us have got mental health problems than we realize. And it's not about being soft or fluffy or whatever you want to call it. It's about just realizing you've got to get better. And I just say natter to people, really just have a chat. Everyone's got some close mates and talk, especially blokes. We're crap at it, even if it means going out for a quick pint and just letting everything out of your head. The longer we bottle it up, that's when it manifests. And that's what it did with me for years. I just let things just stir around in here. And it was no good for me. It really wasn't. And that was years. So there is no answer. If you tell people, I think you're suffering with anxiety or depression and you need to go see someone, the natural reaction is to put the defenses up. And there's nothing wrong with me. I'm fine. And it's like everything. But mental health is no different to breaking your leg. It's you put a cast on it, you go to A&E. So let's just treat it quite as simple and as basic as that if you've got a problem and you're limping through life because you can't see or think straight, it's no different to putting a plaster on your arm or your leg or putting your shoulder in a sling. That's how I see it now. And there are people out there. It's easy. You don't need to just signpost people. You Google in who can help you. There's Healthy Minds, there's Mind, there's Samaritans, everyone, we know that they're there, but we just don't, we're in fear of tapping into them because it's seen as a sign of weakness. And we need to get rid of that stigma that mental health is seen as a personal weakness in anybody, because it ain't. It's not. The strength is coming up and standing up and going, I just need a bit of time out and help. There was a band I saw and they were brilliant and I just applauded it. They came up and said, our mental health, one of our isn't in the place, we're cancelling our tour. How good is that? It's like you've actually coming up and standing up and going, we're not right, so we'll come back when we are. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's just having the confidence and the bravery to do that and just go, look, yeah, I'm going through it. It ain't right. I covered it up for 20 odd years and it didn't do me any good. So I just implore, just get out and just natter and talk. And
sure. So how did Leon the Pig Farmer become a thing? Talk us through even getting the name and, you know, creating, having this idea to become this alter ego. Is that the right way to describe it?
I think it is. Yeah. It's somewhere that I can go on a stage, get hold of a microphone and just tell people stories about the real me without the fear of being judged, for want of a better way, I think. And that's how it started. And it just exploded and went where I didn't even think it were going to go.
Yeah.
I'd been writing for a few months and then I went to a couple people. I'd read a couple of bits that I'd done, the early stuff. And a couple of people that were in musicians and other things had gone, they're good. They're really good. You should take them to an open mic night. It's no good being a bedroom poet and keeping them in. So I went to 2 or 3 open mic nights towards the end of June, beginning of July 2019. And when I went to them, the people that were running them also corroborated that and said, look, you've got quite a knack of this. It's good to say for starting stuff. So I went to Blackthorn Festival in Stockport, which sadly isn't going at the moment, but in July that year. And there was a lot of mates that were playing. And I said to them, any chance I can introduce you and just give them a bit of a spoken word piece? And one of my friends in a band was running the stage. So he went, yeah, crack on, speak to the sound engineer. And we did it. And I was reading from a book then. And I did it. And a photographer and someone from the Tameside or Manchester News Report went, who is this? It's brilliant. It's great. There's a middle-aged bloke at this festival coming up and telling everyone that he's suffering. And it kind of went on from there. And after that, I kind of got a taste for it. So I did a couple of gigs in the August towards September. And when I came back, a mate of mine who's a promoter said, I'll put you on. What we're putting you on the poster as? You don't remember Jack Horner, do you? I said, well, I don't know. I said, and just we were having a brew in the Northern Quarter and I just instinctively said, Leon the Pig Farmer. And he went, what? I said, Leon the Pig Farmer. And there is a bit of history to it. Well, first of all, it's a 1992 dark noir British comedy. And it's about a Jewish guy that inherits a pig farm. He was swapped at birth through test tubes, artificial insemination or whatever it was. And he grew up in a family in London, an affluent Jewish family, when realistically, when his family died, they were Yorkshire pig farmers. So we've been Yorkshire and it had some link to it. But when we were in the army, a friend of mine, Jason, when we'd go out on the town for security reasons, we wouldn't give our real names or professions, especially in Germany and Northern Ireland. But on this occasion in the UK, my mate Jason had told someone that his name was Leon and that he was a pig farmer. And this was back in the early 90s. Bear in mind, back then, there was a lot of shoegaze, reverb, distorted music, a load of grunge. And we all did dress in Dr. Martens, jeans and scruffy jumpers and woolly hats. And it was believing. He had this West Country, Western Supermare accent. And he had us in stitches. And it was like we talked to Jason in the third person going, how are you doing, mate? You all right? How's Leon? And it was as if he had this little sort of alter ego going on, and he'd always say it in the third person, he's fine. So in the name of a military, in ode to a friend who's in the army and to having false pseudonyms, I instinctively chose Leon the Pig Farmer. I never fully fitted into the army and other work I've done. I felt like I was always swimming upstream or against the tide. So I imagine that'd be quite much like a Jewish guy inheriting a pig farm. He didn't quite fit in. So it was like that. And then I've kind of found my place now within the creative world. And I feel happy, a lot happier than what I ever have done. So something's going right. And after that, I just used it. I pestered promoters, I pestered venues, I pestered mates in bands, and I was just salivating to do it more. And I did it for another 6 months before lockdown, pulled the rug. And I think that's why I've been so busy, because I was busy and condensed doing loads of stuff at open mic nights for 6-7 months. Then we had COVID, and then it was a year and a half before we could get out again. And it's been another 8-9 months now where I've just, before Christmas, I hammered it just because I was missing it, and I really enjoy it. I do enjoy getting up and telling the short stories and doing the spoken word.
Yeah, and they led the first song on the last Cabbage album is called Leon the Pig Farmer.
It is, yeah.
And, you happen to get up on stage with him and perform for them guys recently as well. So just how does that relationship with Cabbage? How did that begin? And
that began probably over 10 years, about 10 years ago when the young lads started going drinking in local pubs around where we live. They were all in different bands then. And I've always been a follower of up and coming unsigned bands and DIY stuff. And I've known Owen and Brody and Paddy, especially the three lads there. I'd known them since they were younger, and just going into local pubs. And we'd had nattered and stuff like that. And I followed them in the different forms of the bands that were in, from Where's Strutter, Brahma Loca, Cabbage. Some of them gone off to the Afghan Sangang Yellow Brain line. And we'd just, because we lived in the same area, we'd always keep in touch with each other. And they were some of the first lads that I'd mentioned, I've got these words, what do you think? And they were like, that's good, that. And that's why they say we were first to meet the pig farmer in the city, because we were in a pub just having a natter, like just chatting about music and about what we're all up to, and we haven't seen each other for a couple of months. So yeah, Brody got in touch with me, Lee, and said, yeah, we're putting a new album out, and the first song, it's a belter. And he sent me the demos, about 1 minute 50, very Dead Kennedys like, and said, we're putting this one, we just got to get some words. And Lee said, I've got a poem which has got bang bang in it quite a lot. And he said, can I use that little bit, part of it? And I went, yeah, and we'll call it Lee on the Pig Farmer. It's all Orwellian and things like that. So I was honoured. It was good. And then I've done 2 gigs with them, really. It was a pity they've split up now. But I did one just before they went on tour at our local pub where we all go. And I did a little intro from there. But the best one by miles was doing the intro for him at John Hall's gig at the...
Ritz.
Well, it was good doing it, but it was under the wrong circumstances, unfortunately. Yeah. But for John Hall's benefit gig at the Ritz, where I went on before them, and then there was the Blinders and Hooky on and that. But then their last song, when I came on, and the Necroflat, I came on and joined them with a bit of my own verse and jammed with them, which was brilliant. It really was. Chuffed for that.
Yeah, we really enjoyed you at my tramline stage in Sheffield as well. It was just...
I loved that. That was a lineup to die for, that, wasn't it? Like Battery Farm, Pagans.
I'm having a nightmare this year trying to book my tramline stage to get it better than last year. I can't. I don't know how I'm going to do it.
No, you'll be struggling. It was cracking. It was a good vibe. It was like, it was just looking at everyone's... I'm a people observer, and I was watching everyone that was in there. And from the first band that went on, because there was a lot of hard shouting and a lot of like Ollie of Sinclair and Ben of Battery Farm, and you've got all those, as well as Marcus and Pagans, all very shouty, very upfront people on a microphone, and it was in your face, and people were like, well, what's going on? But by halfway, not even halfway through, everyone, it clicked, and it was like it was just under a mile an hour tsunami of noise and music and good stuff. And it was a cracking day out, that, mate. It was. I
don't know. I'm calling out for help. I'm really struggling to be able to beat that lineup from last year.
I know everyone's going. He puts on a banging stage. Great boozer. Great lineup. How do we beat that? And it was one of them. Yeah. It was great. I loved it.
It works really well with music. Your performance, it sets up music nice. What is it about your performance that helps the process of live music?
I think it's because the energy, the emotion that I put into it. I don't use phones or books. I've got 46 verse that I rehearse every week that are in my head. And when I learn a new one, it is literally very lyrical. It rhymes. There's an element of, I wouldn't say some people have associated it to rap, but I can see that because of its rhyme and its cadence, but it's very lyrical. There's a lot of rhyme in it. There's sometimes a chorus in it. So it is very much like a cappella. It's like a song, but with no music. And I stand up there stripped bare without a band, and I give you a vocalist's performance, whether it be 4 times 5, 6 minute sets between bands, or I give you a 20-minute set. You get the energy that you would from a front man, but without 3 or 4 other lads and lasses, or a front woman, without trying to be pigeonhole and getting slated for that. But without a good front woman or a front man, I do something similar, but without music. But then again, we'll talk about it in a bit. I hope we will, about how I've transferred that to the dirt and do that. But I love it. I love both sides of it. But I think it does work well. I think because of who I am, the identity, how I look, I guess. Don't dress that conformist. I've got a bit of a quirk, I guess, and I think it fits in with the band scene. It fits in with music, and the people that like that kind of music get that kind of art and the spoken word that blends in with it. So I think with having a lot of interest in music, I kind of migrated towards that side of it more than I did the literacy and poet spoken word side of it.
It always surprises me when I speak to comedians or speak to people like yourself. It always surprises me because I've seen you perform, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. I don't know. How do you remember all that stuff? Because I've just got a brain like a sieve sometimes, and I just can't. Do you use special techniques to be able to remember this kind of stuff?
Most of the stuff I do are either 8, 9, or 10 4-line stanzas. So they're all very similar verses. They're all 4 lines. They don't always rhyme, but either the second or the fourth, or the first and second and third and fourth will tend to have some sort of rhyme, and there'll be a level of cadence to it, similar sort of bar beats. And when I'm learning a new one, it's got to have a reference. There's got to be a story to me. So a beginning, middle, and end. So I kind of know where I'm going. So if I do miss a verse out, I can always go back one and it won't be too bad. But I learn a line, and then I learn 2, and then I'll make sure I've got the first one verse of 4 lines in my head. And then I build building blocks, and I build up to 2 verse, 3 verse, 4 verse. Some I'll get 8 verse in my head in a day. And then it's a case of going through it 3 or 4 times a day till it's there. So there's a lot of background work that goes into it, to be fair. And I use that kind of like, it's very rhythm and relaxing for me. So I'll sit with a cup of tea and learn it until I've got all 8, 9, 10 verse in my head. And then I'll work, once it's in my head, I'll juggle and work around with it and say, oh, all right, yeah, I like that verse. And then I'll take it out and put a chorus verse in just to punctuate it a bit. Yeah. And that's how I go about it. And then once it's in my head, like every bit of verse, when I go out for a run on a Monday or a Friday, usually I recite them all on a loop around Saddleworth, and that's my rehearsal time for me spoken word.
I'm just looking through your book here again. Just everybody, still available, is it, mate?
Still available. Yeah, I've got a few copies. I keep buying a few. Yeah, buy it off me or buy it off lulu.com. Please don't buy it. It is on Amazon. And I tell people, mate, if you buy it off Amazon, I get £2 because I give some to charity. They don't get much. And then Bezos basically gets enough money to buy another spacecraft, doesn't he?
Well, it's beautifully illustrated. Who did the illustrations on them?
A friend of mine, Phil Wagstaff, who's a local lad. I've known him for years through the local pubs. It's a common theme, me knowing people around here in boozers. But he's now a recovering alcoholic. He hasn't drunk for 5, 6 years since his heart stopped and his organs gave up, and he still does art, and he's got a crazy mind. And now that he's sober, the clarity sticks in. It's just crackers. It's mad. And he's very good. So I gave him about 15, 20 verse and just said, hey, put them through your art machine in your head and come out. And the work he's come out with is that one that's on the left-hand side. It's just balmy. And the right-hand stuff to do in Northern Ireland. He's just amazing of what he comes up with. And we some of them were all on like A3 size, which I think about 50 by 40 centimeters or whatever it is. And literally I had to chop them into bits because it was so detailed. If we'd have shrunk it down, you wouldn't have seen the detail that was in it. And that's I had to get him to put that one in because that's one he'd done before. But he's a very talented man, and in doing gothic and dark art. And I loved working with him. I am going to do another book with him in a while. I've got one other project on the go at the moment, which is more to do with photography and dystopian landscapes in Manchester. How I talk about commentating me walks through the Northern Quarter and spinning fields and all that like. And but then I am going to do another one with him on an Alice in Wonderland theme. So I'll test his brain a bit more then.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, amazing stuff, mate. And to call it talking myself out of trouble. And just being so honest about it. I'm sure there's people out there that you'll never meet that, see the message and see it from afar, and they're thankful that, you're spreading the message, and it must resonate with a lot of people. Do you hear from people that the message has resonated with?
I do. I get messages off people a lot on Messenger or on the Pig Farmer Messenger page or even through the website and stuff saying, mate, I've got your book. This is nuts. And I get a few. I had a Zoom call with a veterans charity last night who got behind the book and enjoy what I'm doing, and we want to spread it amongst veterans or homeless and mental health charities. And I did a talk, and I got someone asked me, I do work with Turning Point in Manchester with drug addiction and alcohol addiction, just to see if I can help them with just finding an artistic. It doesn't have to be writing. I always go in with the open mind there. Just find something creative. But that I do get other people, even at gigs, someone will come up to me like they did when I did a gig with The Dirt the other week, and a guy came up to me and went, I'm an ex-squaddie. That really resonates with me. And at the time, he didn't know that I was an ex-serviceman suffering with PTSD. We got chatting, and it just opens up them doors to talking, and it gives them something, and it gives everybody a line or a hope that if you are in that dark place, there's a way out of it. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel, I think. Well,
you mentioned one of your newest projects there, The Dirt, with your wife, Chico.
Yeah.
How did that did it start from? I'm guessing it starts from being on the stage with bands and just thinking, I want a bit more of this.
It kind of a bit like that. It was more that when I first met her and I went out to Japan to visit, she's Japanese. Before we start, like she's Japanese. I met her over in England while she was over here studying some English. She's same age as me. She came over. She's got the same interest in music as me. Going back to bands from the 80s and stuff we were into, like Mary Chain, The Fall. We're all into like Sonic Youth and Ride and shoegaze bands. She likes a bit of prog stuff, and I like stuff a bit heavier. But we've always chatted about music. And I went out to meet her, and I watched her band Single Man play a 3-piece playing Kanazawa, and I just liked what she did. And as we got to know each other, and she was visiting me over here before she moved over, we started chatting about, and she started bringing her guitar pedals over, so she was practicing and teaching other stuff. Which it just organically went. She went, oh yeah, I'd like to start something, but I can't write English lyrics. I went, well, I've got books full of stuff. Shall we do something? So leading into lockdown, when she was on one of her visits here, she just put a lot of guitar tracks down on a home recording studio on a laptop in the house where we've got a little room in the basement, like a rehearsal recording place, which it is now. It was, she came back with this stuff, and I just put some words on there through a mic, and we liked it that much. We put it out on Bandcamp and created a name, and people got behind it. And then lockdown came in, so we couldn't do anything live, but we still practiced. And it was a case of when we got our lockdown, we promised, and we had a few people saying, I'd love to see that live. So we took it further, and we rehearsed and we rehearsed and we rehearsed. And then we've managed to get it live and get a few people backing us to go and do some live gigs. So we've done 3 so far, which have all been brilliant. One with Yellow Brain from round here, one with Mark Radcliffe's Oon, and one with Fuzz Club's New Candies from Italy. And they've all been brilliant. We've got a few more great ones lined up through the summer. And I love it. I really do. It's something that's totally different, working one with your wife.
That's what I'm going to ask. What's it like working with your wife?
It's brilliant, mate. It's like people are going, you're lying, working with your wife, you never argue. It's like, but we don't. It's very organic. It's just we strip everything down, and she's that good. If anyone's not seen it, just look at a few pictures. Her effects pedal board. If the Titanic was that board, it wouldn't have sunk. It's that huge and robust. It's mental, and the way she orchestrates it and works around it, it's mesmerizing, and I just love watching her play and watching her do stuff. And I've got an easy job. I really have. I just got, I like the sound of that. I've got the lyrics for that, and I'll learn the lyrics, and then I'll just layer them on the top. So I do have it quite easy. Compared to
Chico, did she have all the effects and everything before The Dirt, or was that a result of The Dirt?
She's always had her effects pedals, but everything she plays, she won't play in a backing track. She refuses to use them. So she'll play guitar. She has a loop station, and she has a switch pedal station for changing effects. So she has a ridiculous amount of noise distortion sounds on there, and she'll play like a backing bass line. She'll then play a rhythm guitar bit, layer it in, and then she'll play other guitars while I'm talking. So she's constantly on the go. She grafts really hard for the half an hour, 40 minutes that we do.
I can imagine you have got the easy bit, haven't you?
I have, yeah, but it's getting harder now because I've brought a sample pad, so we're going to add some percussion in.
Okay.
Make some songs a bit different and throw in some quite clangy industrial percussion sounds. I'm not going to call it drumming because I've got to use a loop pedal to even get it even sounding like like something to drumming. But yeah, I'm going to bring a bit of that in. And just to give it that, we like it so it's quite DIY, clunky, and so it's not over nice. And it's something different, I think. It's enjoyable. So yeah, we brought a CD out. That shifted really quick, a limited edition. So I've ordered a few more copies of that because more people are wanting them. And that's good. I'm enjoying everything, pal. It's just nice to be creative and having the scope to be able to do it.
Well, I'll put the links. Send me your links, and I'll put them on. And if you're interested in finding out more about the dirt and Beyond the Pig Farmer in more general, in the description of this podcast, there'll be loads of links. Click on those links, and it'll take you straight towards Jack. So, what other projects have you got coming up then? That you can talk about.
I've got my next book's going to come out in the summer. I've got all verse. I've got to the first stage of sifting. I've put 40 verse together, and I need to get it down to 30. And maybe rewrite a couple. I'm then going to go to
who makes that decision to shorten it down? Is that a self-edit thing, or is that
I'll self-edit it down to probably 35, and then I'll give them. Last time I did it with a friend of mine, Trudy, and we got it down, and then we put them in some sort of order to make it flow. So I give it to a third party to do that, because I could be biased and it might not be as good as what a reader would want. So I'll give it to someone else, and for them to give it some sort of order, and then we'll get it down to 30. I think 30 is a nice number in that size book. And then I'm going to work with a photographer and get some loads of monochromes, black and white distorted images, and we're going to put a juicy book together that's a bit different and look through our eyes of Manchester and of the North, and say it's not as glossy as the media and other people make it out. There's stuff going on in the back streets and back scenes which are a little bit different. So that's the next project. There's no title. We're still in the early stages of collecting material, but I'd like to have it out for the summer and self-publish again, really, and just keep it DIY. And I'm getting the dirt. I'm nattering people for gigs. That's all booked up for the year. We've got one a month, and we're going to keep it at that for the time being. We don't want to overexpose it. But I'm doing little collaborations with people. I've done a couple of more electronic kind of stuff where I put words down. So I've done a few of them, and I've got one or two more that I'm looking at doing, and just setting up a few little different gigs myself with a few different people, and just enjoying it, really.
Mate, you're all over the internet. I love to see it. You're working so hard, and it's paying off. It's just nice to see you online and see you every now and again down at a gig and share a pint with you. To finish off the little interview today, would you mind doing us a little bit of something that means something to you? Well, I presume everything means something to you, but I mean, would you like to do what's it called? Would you like to do as a little piece?
I'll do your piece out of the book. And it's a 2-piece one. And it's one of my favorites, and it seems to be one that a lot of people like, if not heard it. And it's called The Monkey and the Devil. And it kind of sums up what my mental health was about. I had this little trick monkey telling me stuff to do, the mischievous side of me. And it's about the monkey and then having a scrap with the devil and literally coming out the other side and realizing you can win. So it's kind of a message that, we all have these little demons, but it's how we take them on. So I do humorous stuff as well, social commentary. So I've got a fair bit of that, and I like to mix that into my set, so it's not all dark and dreary and self-indulgent about my mental health. So there it goes then. Here's the geezer with a long leather coat, a red paisley bandana that covers his throat. He's got a tilted trilby and an eye so vicious, and he lurks in the corner of my subconscious. He's a waiter to the world of my emotional dysfunction. He serves ready meals to my personal destruction. I accept his twisted malevolent suggestion, or when I dine on guilt and a bottle of correction. But when did I let him decide and wait for the bill to restore my pride? You see, the menu reads like an old damaged story with every attempt to remove life's glory. Well, this is Twilight Crazy Town. Why should I pay with my voice and sound? I dig deep and I delve for me 9 out of 10, a 3-course thoughts to feelings into actions, and I will win, so I stop. And I reflect, and I don't collaborate or even reject. I'm intrusive. I ask my thoughts why, and I do not contemplate or listen to lies. Because do they serve you? Do they get in the way? Do they deserve you? Can those thoughts stay? Never be ashamed of what you've done. Be punching proud of what you've become. Because I confronted stories of a tiger and hunter, of milk and honey, and they made me wonder. A pauper farmer and a broken son. Those of wild horses and what the army has done. I'll fold paper into fighter planes. These are flying fucks to help, not blame. I won't let the cash cow grind me down. I'm going to take back my orb and the thornless crown. I'll pour water on your flames of suppression. I'll pour petrol on hope so we burn with passion. I will restore cracks with glistening gold. We are unique histories. We've got stories to be told. Because the Reaper, he sits with a rusty blade. He's frowning and cowering. Our futures are made. Here is a message that I will give to you from the Japanese proverb, Saromo Kikara Achiru. Even a monkey falls from a tree. My monkey fell from a tree. One day yours could fall from the tree. It's how you pick yourself up and believe. Because my heart is now presented without a black and tortured soul. I'm instructing Lucifer, go and ride on home. I'll uninjure remove myself from the ebony cross. I'll extract those nails one by one and my hands are held aloft. So come on then, Diablo, let your dog off the leash. I'll stare into its gaping jaws. I'll break its frothing teeth. The black sheep fingers are burnt. They're still placed on a trigger. It's a darkened silhouette. And I'm a lonely standing figure. So come on then, old Nick. I ain't afraid of this. I'm going to grip you. I'm going to choke you. I'm going to silence your snake hiss. I will escort you from the party and vanquish you because this is my life. Or when you think you can extinguish my candle in the night. I don't think so, Darkened Prince, because you can think you can shine brighter. I'm the fierce dog now, and I'm a battler and I'm a fighter. And I will not be imprisoned or suffering a golden silence. These cemetery gates, they're ripped open, and I am going to dance without a shyness. So we can sit opposite each other here now, Baphomet, because you played your final ace. I'm healing. You're deceiving. May I spit in your face. Thank you.
Yes, mate. Thank you.
A lot of words there.
Jack, cheers, mate. Really appreciate you joining us down at the podcast today. Thanks for being open and honest about everything. It's really appreciated. And I will be putting a pint in front of you very soon when I see you out there in the real world down at a gig in Manchester somewhere. Cheers, mate.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.